Some of the most unsettling mysteries aren't found in horror stories. They're hidden in things we were never supposed to notice. A broadcast that didn't match the timeline. A song that doesn't exist anymore. An episode no one else remembers. Tonight, we're looking at lost media that doesn't feel fictional. Stories where reality slips just slightly. Enough to leave questions that nobody can properly answer. From a local news station that aired footage of a disaster days before it happened, to a distorted vinyl record carrying a song that seems familiar but can't be found anywhere, and an old cartoon episode remembered only in fragments. Are you ready? Let's begin. Story number 1, a song that doesn't exist. I never considered myself a collector. Not in the obsessive curated sense. I had a habit of picking up old records from thrift stores and estate sales, sometimes just for the album covers, sometimes for the nostalgia. I liked the crackle of vinyl, the imperfections, the way old music felt different when played through something tangible. But I never expected to find something like this. It was last November. I was sifting through the bins at an out-of-the-way antique shop just outside of town. The shop was cluttered, but I liked that. It felt like there were things hiding, waiting to be found. I had already picked out a few records when I spotted it. No cover, no sleeve, just a black vinyl record sitting loose between an old Bread album and a warped copy of Abbey Road. The label had no markings. Just a faded, yellowed circle where something had once been. I turned it over in my hands. It felt heavier than the others, though that was probably my imagination. The grooves were deep, well-worn. Someone had played this a lot. I ended up buying it, took it home, and for a while, I forgot about it. The record sat on my desk, half buried under some papers, until one night I decided to finally play it. It was past midnight, and I had that specific kind of insomnia where your brain won't settle on anything for more than a few seconds. I dropped the needle on the vinyl and sat back, waiting. At first, there was just crackle. Not the smooth, expected crackle of a well-loved record. This was heavier, almost like distant rain on a tin roof. And then, underneath it, music. It was familiar. Not in the way old songs sometimes are, echoing something you might have heard in passing years ago. It was deeper than that. The melody was thin, buried under distortion, but I knew it. The rhythm that felt just on the edge of recognition. And then, the voice. Male, warm, a little distant. Here's a clip of this track. Take a listen. The song never resolved. It just looped. I felt the vague discomfort of something being slightly wrong, like I had stepped into a memory that wasn't supposed to be revisited. I spent the next few days trying to find the song. I searched lyrics databases, sifted through old Billboard charts from the late 80s, scoured music forums. I even posted a clip of the distorted track to Name That Song subreddit, hoping someone might recognize it. No one did. No one even came close. The responses were all the same. Doesn't ring a bell. Maybe a local band. Sounds kinda like a slowed down version of something, but I can't place it. Are you sure this isn't just a weird remix? But I knew I had heard this song before. I could remember the full version playing on the radio. I remembered the chorus, the way the melody swelled, except when I tried to hum it, it slipped away from me, like trying to hold on to a dream after waking up. I went deeper. I started reaching out to collectors, people who specialize in obscure radio hits. I found old playlists from defunct stations, archived recordings of 80s top 40 shows, even local station logs. Nothing. I started thinking about the record itself. Who had owned it before me? Why was it unlabeled? Why had it been played so many times? The more I searched, the more it felt like I was chasing a ghost, like the song had only ever existed in my head. The more I thought about it, the stranger it became. How could something so common in my memory be so impossible to track down? And yet, no one else seemed to remember it, or they didn't want to. Story number 2, Final Broadcast. I used to work in broadcast archives, primarily digitizing old tapes and organizing footage. About a year ago, while clearing out storage from a defunct local news station, I found a box of unlabeled tapes. Most contained standard news segments, but one stood out. It was labeled only with the date September 14th, 1999. Curious, I researched that date and discovered that WDXC Channel 6, a small independent station in rural Pennsylvania, had abruptly ceased operations shortly after. Officially, financial difficulties were cited, but rumors suggested something more: mismanagement, legal troubles, or perhaps something else. The sudden shutdown and the lack of information intrigued me. Late at night, alone in the archives, I decided to watch the tape. The broadcast began typically with the familiar blue and yellow graphics of WDXC Channel 6. Anchors Tom Bristow and Nancy Morrison introduced the 10 p.m. evening news. The initial stories were routine: local politics, community events, and a minor traffic incident. Then, about 8 minutes in, the tone shifted. Tom adjusted his tie, his expression turning serious. "We have breaking news," he announced. "Authorities are responding to reports of severe flooding in the area. Residents are advised to stay indoors and avoid low-lying areas." Nancy added, "Early reports indicate significant rainfall causing flash floods. Emergency services are on high alert." The broadcast then cut to a field reporter standing in heavy rain near a swollen river. "As you can see," he said, "the river has overflowed its banks, and nearby streets are submerged. Residents are being evacuated to higher ground." The coverage continued with interviews of displaced residents and footage of flooded streets and damaged homes. The anchors reiterated safety instructions, urging viewers to stay tuned for updates. The broadcast concluded with Tom stating, "We'll continue to monitor the situation and provide updates as they become available. Stay safe." I was puzzled. I didn't recall any significant flooding in Pennsylvania around that time. Digging deeper, I found that Hurricane Floyd had impacted Pennsylvania, causing severe flooding and 13 deaths. However, Hurricane Floyd struck the region on September 16, 1999, 2 days after the date on the tape. This discrepancy was unsettling. How could this channel have reported on a disaster that hadn't happened yet? Even stranger, I noticed small details that felt off. Throughout the broadcast, there were no timestamps, which was unusual for breaking news. The field reporter segment had no lower third graphic identifying his name or location. Some of the interview footage appeared oddly static, like the displaced residents weren't reacting naturally to their surroundings. One man, wrapped in a blanket, blinked only once in nearly a minute of screen time. Another woman, supposedly recounting how she escaped the floodwaters, spoke in a strangely monotone voice, as if reading a script she barely understood. Most unsettling of all, the final wide shot of the news desk lingered too long, nearly 20 silent seconds, before the broadcast abruptly cut to a blank screen. I attempted to contact former employees. None of them responded. I found archived newspapers from September 1999, trying to verify if any reports matched what I saw on the tape. There was nothing about flooding before September 16th. It was as if the news report had been aired too early, a mistake that should have been impossible. Then I discovered something that sent a chill down my spine. A brief mention in an old industry bulletin noted that WDXC's final transmission ended abruptly, cutting off mid-broadcast. No final sign-off, no transition to station closure, just static. But I can't help but wonder if they somehow knew about the impending disaster before it occurred, and if that knowledge led to their abrupt silence. Was it a mistake? A slip-up in timing? I guess we'll never know. Story number 3, Lost TV Show. I don't remember exactly how old I was when I first saw it. 5, maybe 6. It was one of those early morning cartoons that just sort of existed in the background of my childhood. The kind you didn't have a favorite character from, the kind you never talked about at school, but still watched because it was just there. I think it aired on PBS or maybe some obscure local station. It was a cheaply animated kids show, one of those borderline educational ones with simple morals and gentle music. The name escapes me now, which bothers me more than it should. I only remember bits and pieces, something about a group of talking animals living in a quiet little town. The kind of thing parents put on because it was harmless, slow-moving, and kept kids from bouncing off the walls. I hadn't thought about it in decades, not until last month. I was helping my parents clean out their attic when I found a box of old VHS tapes. Most of them were labeled, things like Christmas 1996, Dad's birthday, but one stood out. A blank tape in a plastic case, no label, nothing to indicate what was on it. I almost tossed it aside, but curiosity got the better of me. That night, I dug out an old VCR from the garage, hooked it up to my TV, and pressed play. A few seconds of that warped, grainy blue screen. Then a flicker of something. The opening theme of the cartoon, but with no actual name of it, just the music. The melody felt like an itch in the back of my mind, familiar, but just out of reach. The colors were faded, the audio wobbly. It looked like a standard episode at first. The characters, I wish I could remember their names, were gathered in the town square. They were talking about preparing for some kind of celebration. The animation was clunky, the dialogue stilted, just like I remembered, but something felt off. The pacing was strange. Too many pauses, like the characters were hesitating between lines. The background music was quieter than it should have been, almost muffled. The characters looked slightly different from what I remembered. Their expressions were a little too detailed, their eyes shaded in a way that made them seem almost glassy. There was something unnatural about them. About 10 minutes in, the tone shifted. The celebration the characters had been planning was suddenly canceled. No reason given. The dialogue became odd. They said it's not safe anymore, one of them muttered. Who? Another asked. The first character didn't respond. The conversation moved on as if nothing had happened. It only got worse from there. The episode became increasingly disjointed. Long, lingering shots of empty streets. A character staring out a window for an uncomfortable amount of time. There was a scene where one of them, the rabbit I think, walked into a field and just stood there, didn't move. He just stood there, facing away from the camera while the sound of the wind grew louder. It went on for almost a full minute. Then, abruptly, the picture distorted, warped, like the tape had been damaged. When it cleared, the show moved on without mentioning it. The episode ended without a real conclusion. No credits, no closing theme, just a cut to static. I sat there for a long time after it ended. The next day, I tried looking up the show online. I scoured old TV listings, obscure animation forums, nostalgia threads. Nothing. No record of it ever existing. Every show I thought it might have been led to a dead end. I started asking around, old friends, cousins, anyone who might have watched the same early morning cartoons as me. Most didn't remember. A few said it sounded familiar, but vaguely, like a dream they had mostly forgotten. One friend, after I described the episode, went quiet for a moment before saying, That Sounds like something I used to watch, but I don't think it was real. That was the last thing I expected to hear. What do you mean? I asked. He hesitated. I used to have dreams about a show like that, but when I tried to remember details, they'd just fade. I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't. I haven't watched the tape again. It's still sitting on my shelf, right where I left it. I keep telling myself I'll go back. Maybe try to digitize it, show it to someone else, anything to prove it's real. But every time I reach for it, I feel this quiet hesitation. Like something in the back of my mind is telling me not to. I don't remember ever stopping watching that show as a kid. I don't remember it being canceled or fading from TV or even growing out of it. One day, it was just gone, like it had never existed at all.